Persona has a lot of good social links across the games. I mean, it's basically the entire point of the series at this point. But if you ask me, Persona 5 actually has the best ones on average. Persona 3 and 4 tend to have at least one or so social links I do not like whatsoever, but in the case of Persona 5, there are only confidants that are kinda whatever, none that are outright bad. I actually like the vast majority of them, so today I'd like to sit down with you all and rank them from worst to best. With the preamble out the way, we can go ahead and get started, and if you enjoy the video, feel free to drop a like and a sub, thank you. Starting off the D tier is every auto-advancing confidant. I'll be honest, I've never been a fan of any of the auto-advancing ones, and it isn't that they're terrible or anything, they're just super forgettable. When I was thinking of all the confidants and where to place them, I straight up forgot Igor was even in the game, and the ranks themselves aren't that engaging. Sai is an example, you do learn a little about her and it reflects the trust she's starting to have in you, but under no circumstances would I say I liked it more than basically any other confidant. Morgana and Igor are the same case. Honestly, that's all I gotta say about them. They exist, they're alright, but that's about all I gotta say. I can see how people would like them though. Makoto is gonna be the start of the C tier, and I don't know how hot of a take this is or is not, cause I know she's a fan favorite character and I do like her, but her confidant is very underwhelming, like probably the most underwhelming one in the game. I feel no sort of feelings when I do this confidant because, as I'm sure we all know, this confidant focuses on a whole other character that isn't Makoto, which makes this kind of just a, I don't know, like boring social link for lack of better words. When I'm doing a confidant or a social link, I'm wanting to interact with the character themselves and have them be the main focus. And I get what they were trying to do with Makoto with showcasing her impulsiveness and protective nature, so it's not terrible, but it's just not for me. This is kind of a problem with a lot of Persona 5 confidants in general, where there's another character of interest that takes some of the focus away from the characters themselves, but this one represents that problem the best in my eyes, or well, the worst in this instance. In the end, she realizes she needs to balance her own life with her studies better, and basically decides to become a police commissioner to help people, which some people see in a negative light, but I don't think it's that bad of a decision. The reason some people don't like it is because Joker was treated like shit by the police. And while the police in this game are kind of just the ops, but as always, there's nuance to these things. I think it makes sense for her to follow a similar path to her father, whom she loved and respected a lot. We got a lot more confidants to go over, so I'm gonna leave it there for Makoto. But she is solid and I don't hate her, but she's not the best by any means. And the next confidant, Shinya, is a similar case. I don't hate this confidant as much as some other people do, but once again, it's not too memorable. I think it's a pretty well written confidant and it touches on a topic not done before, that being the hot-headed gamer kid. Since this game takes place in 2016 or so, it makes sense for a kid to have an ego over his gaming skill. The way he grows more mature through interactions with Joker made the storyline pretty interesting. I also think it's a power play that through the power of friendship and maturity, he's able to be a literal cheater not just once, but twice. I think it's also cool how it shows the naivete God, I can't speak English. Naivete of a kid and their friendship to their peers. So there we go. English is cool, guys. When Shinya gets confronted by his friends and gets told he's a bad person, he straight up doesn't understand the perspective they're coming from. He doesn't feel like he's doing anything wrong, which I think is a good representation of a younger kid in a situation like Shinya. Once again though, this confidant has another character in it that somewhat drives it forward. Beyond his friends and the gun-about dude, his mom is a driving force. Even though this is far from one of my favorite confidants, I am quite fond of it, and I hope Atlus continues to give their younger characters the good writing they've been doing thus far. After Shinya comes what is most people's absolute least favorite confidant, and hell, I've seen some people say it's just their least favorite in the entire series, Ouya. I'm not gonna lie, Ouya was just really forgettable. I honestly forgot what even happens in her confidant, but I remember not hating it, but not caring for it either. So basically, Ouya is a journalist that makes a deal with Joker to write articles about the Phantom Thieves in exchange for information about them. The storyline follows Ouya in her journey to find the truth about the death of her former partner, but as she gets closer to the truth, her boss keeps getting on her ass, so Joker changes his heart and it's revealed her partner had a mental shutdown. This is actually pretty interesting because this means her partner's shadow was killed in the metaverse at some point, which makes sense because she was trying to expose Shido for his crimes. It's a good way of showcasing the power and influence of the ultimate threat you're bound to go after, because we know what he's done to Joker, but what has he been doing to others? Something even worse, which makes you even more inclined to go change his heart. It also means the Black Mask basically killed Ouya's partner, so, you know. Although I found this confidant to be forgettable, after I refreshed my memory of what goes on in it, it really isn't that bad. I think the reason people don't like it above all else comes down to Ouya's personality. This kind of character is always going to be hit or miss, you know, the drunken type character, so I don't blame people if they don't find her enjoyable or fun to be around. It didn't bother me too much, which is why I feel comfortable putting her as the final character of the C tier section of this tier list. Now that we got the C tier done, we can go into the 5-headed girl Chihaya, who's starting off the B tier. Chihaya is a confidant that gets slept on pretty hard, but if you give her a chance, she's actually pretty damn good. She's a fortune teller that believes you cannot escape fate no matter how hard you try, but upon meeting Joker, her views start to change. I feel like most people get a bad first impression from Chihaya considering she, you know, scams you out of like 100k yen, I think, which that's totally understandable, but I think her interactions with Joker are pretty good. Joker shows Chihaya that fate can be changed by helping her clients, which gives her the motivation to change for the better herself. Once again, this confidant has the P5 syndrome of another evil character making an appearance, but at a certain point you have to be willing to overlook it since changing people's hearts is the point of the game. It makes sense they'd want to implement it through the requests and confidants. I think this confidant is great because the whole storyline of Joker and P5 itself is that you can change yourself and your destiny for the better, so it's cool to see Joker having a positive impact on those around him in this regard. Chihaya is also a Fire Lupin 3 reference, so that's cool too. I enjoy her storyline, and like I said, I think she gets slept on a lot. After Chihaya is my girl Hifumi, and initially I planned on putting her higher because she actually was one of my favorite confidants on the first playthrough, and I did enjoy her character. But then I thought about it and I was like, nah, I just can't put her that much higher than Chihiro. Wait, Chihiro? Wait, what the fuck? Why did I say Chihiro? Chihiya's. I do think it's cool how her confidant starts with her being the confident shogi goat, but ends with her losing and starting over on her own terms. Other than that, there honestly ain't too much to say about the storyline itself. And would you believe it, in a shocking twist of fate, this confidant yet again has another off-screen character that pushes the storyline forward, which is why these confidants are so low because it gets old after a while, and these lower ranked ones do it in the least interesting ways. That said, I like her fierce, competitive, and honorable personality. It's not the deepest confidant, it's probably one of the lesser relatable ones for 99% of people, but I do love her nonetheless. Something that probably isn't going to be loved is my opinion on Kasumi or Sumire's confidant because I'm ranking it pretty low all things considered. This isn't because I think Kasumi is a bad character, quite the opposite actually, but the thing about it is that all of my favorite moments and interactions with Kasumi are in the main story, not the confidant. This confidant acts as a side thing to her main character arc, which of course is the case for basically every main party member, but for some reason this one feels like it stands out the least in this regard. It's probably because half the confidant is cut off until the very end of the game, but the lore reason behind it is cool at least. The first half is her denial that she's Sumire, and the second half is her acceptance of the fact, which makes her quite unique considering there's only one other confidant in the series that does that. When it comes to the confidant itself though, I don't know, I really just don't remember much about it to be honest. Like there's some small stuff I remember, like her trying to dress up, so those moments are cute. I don't know, it's just an okay confidant, it's nothing crazy, so I'm just putting it in the middle of the pack, that's where it feels right to me. Starting off the A tier has gotta be my gal pal An. You know, gal pal sounded a lot cooler in my head, but whatever. Once again, this confidant has another character that makes a prominent appearance, that being the rival model An has to quote-unquote face, Mika. Speaking of An, if you're interested in some nice Atlus collectibles that are actually affordable, check out Figgies in the description. Code GOJITA for 5% off, metal backplated pixel versions of your favorite characters. We've got An, Joker, Morgana, and a bunch of metaphor characters. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description, code GOJITA for 5% off. Mika, bizarrely, is the only character of this type to have a full portrait, which makes me wonder if she was initially meant to play more of an important role. So An's confidant, without going super in detail, is about An trying to be the best version of herself she can be in her relationship with Shiho. After the fallout with the Kamoshida arc, she feels like she has a lot to learn about herself and strength, and she wants to be a sort of role model if you will, kind of like the TV characters she watched growing up. She decides to go into modeling, and Mika, as I mentioned, plays the role of the rival model. She on her own isn't too interesting, but she does play a good role in An's own character arc. Mika is constantly one-upping her and throwing An under the bus, and since she wasn't putting her full heart into the gig, she had no leg to stand on in the industry. As the link progresses, she eventually finds it in her to take it more seriously, and not only that, grow even closer to Shiho. During the Kamoshida arc, she of course blamed herself in large part for what was happening to her, but she was the reason Shiho had the strength to do her rehab in the first place, and Shiho was the reason An could become a more successful model. It's a good moment in realization that the two of them cared for each other more than they ever knew, and it embodies the feeling of Persona, that being the whole power of bonds and friendship. They loved and trusted each other and found strength to keep going when things got tough, which makes this a very good and enjoyable confidant. There's other stuff I can mention, but again, I don't want this video to be like 800 years long, so I'm just gonna leave it there for now. If you want to hear more long and verbose explanations of every character in the series, basically, you can peep my ultimate character tier list. After on is my actual gal pal, because not only is she my favorite member of the Phantom Thieves, but she's also my birthday twin. My girl, Haru Okumura. Yup, we were both born on December 5th, so we're two peas in a pot. If I had to describe Haru's Confidant in one sentence, I would say if you like Mitsuru Social Link from Persona 3, then you'll probably like Haru's Confidant. They have a similar premise, that being their struggle to take the mantle of their group or company. In my opinion though, I found Haru's to be a bit more entertaining. Like I said, she's my favorite character of the Phantom Thieves, so I find her inherently more enjoyable to be around. She's just super cute for lack of better description, and her personality is instantly likable with her having that fierce side of her that comes out at the flip of a switch. Her arc in the Confidant revolves around her trying to fix the issues her dad left her with, most notably being the horrid working conditions of the Okumura food staff. She has to go through many trials and tribulations to do so, but by the end she becomes a competent leader and pushes the company toward a more healthy direction. She also fully ends the planned wedding with her former fiance, so that's great cause fuck that dude. Just like Hifumi's Confidant, I wouldn't say this is the deepest one or anything, and it's sure as hell not relatable for me at all, but I'll keep it 100, I just got a bias for Haru. She's a cool gal, and that's all that matters. Another cool gal is Takumi, and she's gonna be going right next to Haru. Aside from having one of the most attractive designs I've seen in the series, she has a satisfying arc. Initially, she seems like she's gonna be this intimidating, careless doctor, but she ends up being the opposite. All she wants to do is help people, especially a young child named Mia. Takumi gets framed by some big whiz douchebag in the medical field to have botched her procedure, which makes her sort of infamous in the medical field. At that point, I feel like most people would say fuck it and just throw in the towel, just give up, but Takumi keeps pushing forward in her own way. With the help of Joker, she gets closer to developing the medicine that Mia needs, eventually achieving her ultimate goal. There's a lot of drama that goes on in the links, but it's pretty clear that even early on she's not just trying to use you for some black market shenanigans or something. The reason I've ranked this Confidant pretty highly despite the storyline once again being fairly straightforward in its own way is once again her personality. I like driven and fiery type people, so I'm naturally drawn toward characters like Takumi. Even if I can't relate with the things going on in the links directly, the characters are just likable, and that's the most important thing to me at the end of the day. That on top of the link itself being well written and fun in its own way brings it fairly high up the list. Those experimentations were pretty funny, let's be real. There's only two more characters left for this tier, Awai being one of them. Awai on my first playthrough was by far one of my favorite confidants. I found every rank to be diverse and enjoyable, but not only that, he's just a good ass dude. Every rank had some crazy shit going on. It felt like I was just going crazy doing this undercover Yakuza type shit. But then it locks in around the halfway point or so with his relationship with his son. Awai being a former Yakuza member that somewhat resents that side of himself while loving for his kid made him an interesting character. He knows what he has done and is doing in the Confidant is wrong, but he feels like he doesn't have much choice. If I'm remembering correctly, Awai is the only Confidant to be a criminal in this regard, which makes him stand out from the rest. The resolution in the end with his son accepting him for who he is super heartwarming, and it made me really happy to see this Confidant have a happy ending, because they could have easily made it go a more dark path. Awai is one of those confidants where you might not relate to him, and he is a hard ass in some ways, but it's always endearing to interact with him, especially considering Joker technically ain't a saint himself. He always keeps it real with you, and you keep it real with him and help him in his issues. These types of storylines always hit me in the feels, so I loved Awai's Confidant, loved it. The final character of the A tier is Akechi, and once again he is an S tier because most of my favorite interactions with him are a part of the main story itself. Just want to note that if this were vanilla P5, he'd be in D tier. Royal helped him a lot, his Confidant was really bad before. I do think his Confidant is better than Kasumi's, whom I had similar feelings toward, because I feel like you learned a lot more about Akechi and his perspective than you did with Kasumi, which is in large part due to his relationship with Joker. It expands on the rivalry and dichotomy of the pair's ideals and perspectives on life, which I think is really cool. In particular, the scene where they have the duel in Mementos was one of the most memorable moments of a Confidant to me, and seeing his mask slowly slip off as he spends more time with Joker was an interesting detail. I think it pairs very well with his main character arc, so I think it for sure deserves to wrap up the A tier. It just isn't one of my favorites, but it is very good. If you put it at GOAT tier or something like that, honestly wouldn't even bat an eye. So we come to the S tier, and the reason for most of the characters being in this tier is that they're either my favorite characters, I can relate to them, or they're just really interesting, and someone I really respect is Kawakami Sensei. Truth be told, I didn't really like Kawakami too much at first, but after a while she grew on me. Kawakami is once again a confidant I can't greatly relate to, but I feel more empathetic, if you will, toward her situation. She's a teacher barely making ends meet, working herself to death doing jobs she should not be doing, and that alone makes me want to see her succeed. The workforce of Japan is brutal enough as is, so seeing something like this is just like, man. Like I've mentioned I don't even know how many times, there are outside characters that play an opposing role to Kawakami, but she has them implemented in a better way. In fact, most of the characters from this point onward are pretty good in this regard, so that's the good news. She's being blackmailed, and what caused this to happen was her desire to be a good teacher. Now obviously that kind of sounds dumb as hell without the context, but once you do know the context, it makes more sense. Basically, she was trying to help this more delinquent-esque student, but he ended up passing away. Since Kawakami was stepping out of her intended boundaries, she was technically in the wrong, but it's still a messed up situation because all she wanted to do was help, and now she gets smoked because of it. The Confidant revolves around this dynamic of her wanting to break free from these shackles, but being stuck in them for the foreseeable future. Joker is able to help out by changing the parents' hearts, which gives a very satisfying conclusion to the whole ordeal. It doesn't end there though, because during the epilogue moments with Joker in jail, Kawakami has my favorite scene of them all. She rallies all of the teachers of Shujin into a meeting to convince them to sign a petition to free you from jail, and then she says,
"What good are teachers if they don't believe in their students?"
Which is honestly one of my favorite quotes in the entire game. As someone who got in a lot of trouble during school and had teachers who tried to keep me on the right path, this resonated a lot with me. Teachers are largely the leaders of the next generation, so people like Kawakami are so important. I'm yapping on a little bit now, but I really do love her confidant and story. I honestly don't remember why I didn't like it too much on my first playthrough, but I definitely came around to her, and she's easily one of my favorite confidants in the series. Somewhat similar to Kawakami comes Futaba, and I say that just because she's another character I didn't really care for too much at first. It wasn't because she was poorly written or anything, I just found her personality to be a little too eccentric for me. Let's just say Futaba's personality isn't usually too appealing to me, but I could get past it since she's kind of like the little sis of the Phantom Thieves, and I liked her confidant a lot. Her confidant revolves around her struggles to interact with people in the world in a meaningful way, which is something I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. No need to be ashamed about it either, I struggled in a similar way myself. In our modern day societies where we have infinite access to the internet, it's easy to become secluded from the world. Seeing Futaba trying to break past these barriers was really cool, and hell, even inspiring in a way. Hopefully what I'm about to say doesn't sound too odd, but her social unawareness is what makes this confidant so enjoyable to me. Like, you take her to Shujin and all these places, and she's like a lost, wet cat, and I'd be lying if I said these weren't kind of enjoyable moments. That being said, it is something I'm sure a lot of people deal with and can relate to, so I think it's great in both regards. It's both entertaining and realistic, which is when the Persona confidants or social links are at their best. The resolution to her confidant is great as well, with her finding her own independence and strength to venture the world on her own, especially with the knowledge that in the end of the game, she's going to attend Shujin in person. Futaba is a relatable, fun, and somewhat realistic confidant, so for that she has to be S tier for sure. Another confidant I can relate to, in fact this is the one I relate to the most, is Ryuji's. First and foremost, Ryuji is someone who loves to run but has a fucked up knee, and your boy is in the same boat. I have something called knee valgus, which basically makes it very hard to do running without getting lots of pain in the knees, so I can sympathize with Ryuji's situation. He wants to run and do track, but that alongside the Kamoshida fallout makes it so he literally cannot do so. So his confidant is about him trying to make amends with the track team and get the team back together. The reason the track team had been disbanded and the reason for Ryuji becoming a delinquent was due to him confronting Kamoshida about the abuse. He was in the right of course, but really it's understandable for his former teammates to be mad at him in the moment. From their perspectives he messed everything up, so they're not just going to up and forgive him at a moment's notice. Despite that, he tries his absolute best to bring it back regardless of how people feel about him, which is one of Ryuji's most admirable traits. No matter how he's perceived, he always does what he feels is right, which is why he's one of my favorite characters in the series period. The main flaw of Ryuji that the confidant tackles is his tendency to rush into things on his own. Since he had been abandoned and ostracized by his school and teammates, he felt like he had to do things on his own. It was only through the help of Joker that he was able to get the track team back together though. Ryuji's confidant is one of the most relatable and, to be honest, one of the most grounded confidants. I've seen situations similar to this confidant happen in real life. Not to the same extent, but you get what I mean. People handle abuse and whatnot very differently, so Ryuji's way wasn't the same as the track team, just as Joker's way wasn't the same to anyone else. The two of them bring out the best in each other, and it's one of the coolest confidants to do in the game. Whenever he's available, I'm rushing to help my boy. I love you, Ryuji, you're my boy! Now this next confidant is something that has become increasingly more important as time marches on and the age of a new king draws near. Yusuke's confidant is all about art, the process, struggles, and fulfillment of the craft. In a world where AI is attempting to replace artists and creators, I think this is the best aging confidant in the game. Yusuke throughout all of the links is simply trying to be the best artist he can be, but he's struggling. After the fallout of the Madarame arc, Yusuke is left in a stump about what he should even do with his art. He keeps trying to find his inspiration for it, but he can't do it. He tries to get Joker to strip in a church, he does all these crazy things to find his purpose and drive, but he can't do it. Despite Madarame being an awful person in the end of the day, he feels he can't match the Sayuri painting, so he starts to doubt himself more and more. Eventually though, he locks in and finds his way. He realizes he needs to make art that not just he can enjoy, but everyone can enjoy. The problem with his initial painting in the Confidant is that it somewhat felt dull and dated, so he remakes the painting with a new perspective. Instead of simply sketching mementos as he did with Desire, he adds his own heart and soul into the painting and rebirths it as Desire and Hope. This painting speaks more to the human heart than Desire itself did. The reason this Confidant is so good is because nowadays, people are driven by money. This can be good or bad, but in the case of art, the most important part is putting everything you have into it. If you make something just to make it, you end up with desire. If you find your passion, spark, and drive though, you end up with a competition-winning painting like Desire and Hope. Even in the ending of his Confidant, he refuses to take monetary gain out of his work. All he wants to do is embrace himself and his passions, which I find very respectable. It's a similar thought process I've tried to employ to videos just like this one, and it's an inspiration to me. Regardless of how much people like or dislike my videos, or how much money they make, I try to speak my mind and be as honest as I can. It's why I did not delete my P5X video despite the reception to it. I stand by what I said in that video, and integrity is a key value to me. The fact I'm even able to make these personal connections to Yusuke through his Confidant shows how well written and portrayed it is. So honestly, maybe I'll even put it higher by the end of this video, who knows. One of the last Confidants of this S tier is by far the most overhated Confidant in the game. And to be honest, I don't even really get why. Mishima is by far the most slept on Confidant in the series. Many people will write him off because he's this kind of loser character, but seriously, Mishima is kind of a fucking beast if you think about it. Sure, he's trying to live in the shadow of the Phantom Thieves, but really think about it, why wouldn't he feel this way? If it weren't for the Phantom Thieves, he and everyone else would still be getting abused by Kamoshida, so it's only natural he'd feel some sort of inclination to help or support you. This is why I find his Confidant to be interesting, because you get to see the perspective of someone like this. He's basically a chronically online subreddit moderator that has been bullied and abused and gets access to very powerful people. So of course someone like this would run astray if they aren't kept in check. And even then, Joker doesn't have to do really anything for Mishima to realize what he's doing was wrong. Basically, what he was doing was giving Joker targets that really didn't need to be targeted in the way he thought they did. If someone wronged him, he would tell Joker they need to be a target. He wanted to feel useful and to feel like he had a purpose, but he already knew he was wrong. That's why when Joker confronts his shadow in Mementos, he doesn't even have to defeat it. He says he's wrong and he leaves. He changed on his own. And once he changes, he finds his own courage and strength. He helps his bully out of a very bad situation even though he's standing there pissing his pants himself. Like, real talk, Mishima is kind of a goat throughout the whole game. He creates the fan site so you have constant feedback on your public opinion, you get new requests through it to help people, he's constantly supporting you even when you're dismissive of him and throw him to the wolves like you do with Oya. I mean, I just don't see any actual reason to hate him. If anything, I find him to be very respectable, because at worst he's a horny teenager, which shocker, right? A high school student finds women attractive, go figure. If we really want to talk about characters that aren't given justice at all, we can look at social links like the Gourmet King or Kenji from Persona 3, but that's a whole other can of worms. The TLDR of all this is that Mishima is not that bad and he's actually one of the best confidants in the game to me, and dare I say, the entire series. The juxtaposition between this Confidant and the last one is pretty hilarious, because I'm sure people will be frothing out the mouth like, oh my god, Jan, you fucking moron! You just put Mishima next to Maruki. But hey, I'm just keeping it real with y'all. Maruki is like Kasumi and Akechi, where most of the best moments with him are in the main story itself, but his Confidant is a lot more enjoyable in my opinion. The reason I found this to be more enjoyable is because it gives you a way better idea of the kind of person he is than Kasumi's, and maybe Akechi's did. That one's a little more debatable though. Maruki is a therapist that encourages running away from your problems way too much. And it's not because he's a bad person or anything, that's just genuinely how he feels. He thinks that's a valid approach to a person's problems, but this of course clashes with the entire premise of Persona in a way. This whole dynamic of Joker taking fate into his hands directly, Maruki running away from his problems, and him leading Kasumi to doing what she does in the story is why I think this Confidant works as well as it does. If Maruki was a character all on his own that had no connection to the main plot itself, he'd be around the middle of the pack where Kasumi herself is, or lower, but the added context really does help a lot. I don't want to go too deep into the main story stuff here, so I'm going to leave it there, but I am curious, for those out there that have played Royal, do you agree or disagree with this take? I loved him a lot regardless, but I'm not sure how common or uncommon my take here is. The final character of S tier before we head into the GOAT tier is the goatee man Sojiro, or maybe goateed more like. Okay, that was a really shit joke, sorry. I have basically the same feelings for Sojiro as I did Dojima from Persona 4, except even more so. I love this dude. He stands on business and looks out for you in Futaba no matter what. Even when he thought Joker was criminal scum, he wanted him to succeed, and he did his best to keep him on the right track. Every rank with Sojiro, I had to lock in and listen to what he was saying, because he's just the fucking GOAT. Well, he ain't in the GOAT tier, but he's basically there. He's an honorary GOAT. This Confidant is so good because it brings out the best in himself, Joker, and Futaba. It actually feels like you're starting to build and repair a family from the ground up, and I love how respectful Sojiro is throughout the entire thing. It truly feels like he would do anything for you and Futaba, and this was one of the only Confidants to really make me emotional. It makes every main story beat hit harder as well, since that trio dynamic is something that comes up a lot. Hell, Sojiro is kinda just a father figure to all of the Phantom Thieves when you think about it, but I'm starting to drag this out a little bit. Basically, Sojiro is a hell of a man, and the conclusion to the Confidant is super heartwarming. The dad Confidants or social links in Persona almost always go hard, and Sojiro is probably the best of them all. And finally, we come to the final Confidant of this tier, the only character to have their own tier aptly named GOAT, the disgraced politician Yoshida. I truly think Yoshida embodies the spirit and point of Persona 5 better than any Confidant in the game. From the very start, Yoshida plays an interesting role, because he's a politician in a game where politicians and government staff are portrayed as assholes. From the jump, you probably do not like Yoshida based on pure principle, but this can act as an important lesson for the player. If you skip out on this Confidant just because of his past or who he is on the surface, you've effectively missed the entire point of Persona as a series. Now, I'm not trying to guilt you or say you're dumb if you don't do the Confidant, but really think about it. If you write him off for being a politician, then that's no different than what people do to Joker. They take him at face value based on predetermined conceptions people have about him, and many people do the same for Yoshida. People write him off because of his past, status, and mistakes as well, which is super interesting when you think about it. Then you go into the actual Confidant itself and you see Yoshida and you are one and the same. You both have the same goals and ambitions, you just take vastly different paths to do so. Joker uses the underground methods while Yoshida tries to do it in a more legit manner. Both Joker and Yoshida have growing pains in doing this, but their hearts are in the right place. The two of them help each other to reach their goals either directly or indirectly, and they understand one another regardless of the difference in their approaches to the situation. I think every single rank of this Confidant is just great. A lot of Confidants will have filler ranks or ranks that aren't that crazy for whatever reason, but in Yoshida's case, I was more than happy to spend time with them every time. The only other social link I have ever felt that way about was Akinari from Persona 3, and if you've played that game, you know how goated that social link really is, so me making this comparison is not done lightly. If you're a person who hasn't done Yoshida's Confidant, I really encourage you to do so. Like I said, I think it represents Persona 5 in all its glory, and it's so well written. I love everything about it, so it is without a shadow of a doubt the best Confidant in the entire game. And honestly, it's my favorite one in the entire series, I'm just gonna be honest. Shout out the GOAT, real talk. This video, as always, turned out about 2 times longer than I thought it would, even with me trying to make it concise, but it was fun to make. It's been a while since I looked back at the P5 Confidants, so I'm glad this gave me an excuse to do so. Again, if you're interested in having some dope Atlus collectibles, you should check out Figgies. They're an actual affordable way to get some cool Persona and Metaphor stuff without eating ice soup. Code Gogeta will get you a 5% discount on orders over 50%, so make sure to check out the link at the top of the description if you're interested. With that said, that's going to wrap up our discussion for today. If you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like and a sub. It helps the channel out a lot, and I'll give you a free cookie as always. Here you go, homie. It's been your boy Yandere Gogeta, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, everybody, and have a great day.